Welcome to the deep dive. You've sent us a real head-turner of a news bundle today, all about the major spring snowstorm walloping Thunder Bay.
Yeah, quite something for April.
Right. So our goal in this deep dive is to get right into the nitty-gritty of this weather event, understand what's happening on the ground right now, and maybe even explore some of the reasons why a storm like this can still pack such a punch.
No.
We're not just skimming the surface of the forecast. We're going to unpack the details that really give you a sense of what's going on.
Absolutely. And what you've given us is more than just a weather report. It's a look under the hood at a significant late-season winter storm as it unfolds. We can really dissect the different elements at play here.
Okay, so let's dive straight in. As of early this Wednesday morning, Thunder Bay is under a winter storm warning, which sounds pretty serious right off the bat.
It does, yeah.
The big number is the expected snowfall, 20 to 30 centimeters, with the possibility of even higher amounts west of the city, particularly in elevated areas. But it's not just the sheer volume of snow that's the main concern, is it? It's the 1-2 punch.
Exactly. That's the key. The warning specifically mentions blowing snow, and that's what takes a heavy snowfall event and turns it into a potentially dangerous situation with whiteout conditions.
Right.
It's not just about how much accumulates on the ground. It's about the severely reduced visibility that makes travel so incredibly risky.
And we get a very specific snapshot from Thunder Bay Airport at 5:00 AM EDT. Mostly cloudy skies, the temperature just a touch below freezing at -0.1 degrees C, a dew point of -2.8 degrees C, and relatively high humidity at 82%. The wind was already picking up from the southeast at 20 kilometers per hour, gusting to 30, making the wind chill feel like mighty 5 degrees C. Interestingly, visibility was still quite good at 24 kilometers at that point.
Well, what's interesting here is that you have this almost deceptive calm before the full force hits.
Right.
That high humidity is like a loaded sponge in the atmosphere, holding a lot of moisture ready to be squeezed out as snow. And those increasing southeast winds are the initial push, setting the stage for the main band of heavy snow to move in.
Yeah.
That good visibility at 5 a.m. really highlights how quickly things are about to change.
Which leads us directly to the timeline. The reports indicate that heavy snow and blowing snow are expected to begin late this morning, really ramping up in intensity throughout the afternoon and into the evening.
Yeah, intensification is key.
And get this, the peak snowfall rates could reach a staggering 3 to 5 centimeters per hour.
Wow. Yeah.
That's the kind of accumulation that can make roads disappear in no time and drastically cut visibility.
Exactly. At those rates, even a short journey can become incredibly hazardous. You'll have snow piling up on the roads faster than plows can clear it in some cases, and the blowing snow on top of that creates a disorienting effect, making it difficult to see anything clearly, lane markings, other vehicles, even just the direction of the road.
So if we fast forward to tonight, it doesn't sound like the snow is planning on taking much of a break. They're forecasting another 10 centimeters of snow overnight.
Still significant amounts.
But the wind is also expected to become a major factor, shifting to easterly and really picking up speed, gusting up to 70 kilometers per hour, particularly in those open areas downwind of Lake Superior.
Ah, the lake effect kicking in.
Yeah, the result they're talking about is blizzard-like conditions, especially in the more rural and exposed regions.
And when we look at the anatomy of a winter storm, these intensifying winds are a critical element beyond just the snowfall itself. They're the engine that drives the blowing snow and further reduces visibility. But they also significantly increase the wind chill factor, making the air feel much colder than the actual temperature. And the specific mention of open areas downwind of Lake Superior is significant because those locations will likely bear the brunt of the wind's power.
And yeah, the overnight temperature is predicted to be around -1 degree C, but with those strong winds factored in, the wind chill is expected to make it feel like a frigid -8 degrees C.
Yeah.
The really important takeaway here is the strong recommendation to postpone any non-essential travel, because driving conditions have the potential to become extremely dangerous, if not completely impossible, in certain areas.
This is crucial advice for your safety, seriously. When you have this combination of heavy snowfall and those high winds creating blizzard conditions, it can also severely impact the ability of emergency services to respond. It's always the safest option to avoid travel, if at all possible, in such severe weather.
Good point. Now, let's shift our focus for a moment, because this weather isn't just impacting things on land. There's also a gale warning in effect for Lake Superior.
Oh, wow. Okay.
For anyone unfamiliar, a gale warning signifies the potential for very strong winds over the water, creating hazardous conditions for marine vessels. The wind forecast for the lake is quite robust, starting from the southeast at 25 knots, increasing to 35 knots around midday,
35 knots. That's serious wind on the water.
then shifting to easterly at 30 knots this evening, before gradually diminishing to a northwesterly direction. Just to give you a sense, 25 knots is roughly equivalent to about 46 kilometers per hour.
Right. For anyone on or near Lake Superior, a gale warning should be taken very seriously. Those sustained wind speeds can generate very rough seas and pose a significant threat to mariners.
Definitely.
It's also worth noting that while there are different levels of warnings, the strong wind warning program for the season has already ended, so a gale warning indicates a particularly elevated level of concern.
That context is important. And the wave forecast for the lake is also quite dramatic. They're expecting waves to build from 1.5 meters up to 2 to 3 meters early this morning, and then reaching a significant 3 to 4 meters this afternoon.
3 to 4 meters, that's huge.
Yeah. While they're expected to subside somewhat overnight, they'll still be quite substantial.
Those wave heights, coupled with the strong winds, will create extremely hazardous conditions on the lake. It would be exceptionally dangerous for any vessels to be out in that kind of weather, with the risk of capsizing or being overwhelmed by the waves.
And as if the strong winds and high waves weren't enough, the weather and visibility forecast specifically for the lake calls for snow this afternoon, tonight, and Thursday morning, with visibility potentially dropping to a mile or less in the heavy snow.
Wow. So the reduced visibility on the lake adds another significant layer of risk for any marine traffic that might still be out there. Navigating in heavy snow with high waves and strong winds is an incredibly challenging and, frankly, potentially deadly situation.
It's interesting that they specifically mention the end of the strong wind warning program. It kind of underscores the fact that even though we're into April, Lake Superior can still whip up some pretty severe weather conditions.
Absolutely. Lake Superior is a massive body of water, and it retains its cold temperatures well into the spring months. This means it can still contribute significant energy and moisture to weather systems passing over it, leading to these kinds of intense and prolonged storm events in the surrounding region. It is a huge influence.
Okay, so looking ahead to Thursday, it sounds like we should finally start to see some light at the end of the tunnel. The storm is expected to ease off by early Thursday morning, transitioning to just flurries with cloudy skies.
Some relief. Good.
The winds should also calm down, backing off to a northwesterly direction at around 20 kilometers per hour, and the daytime high is forecast to reach a slightly more spring-like plus 5 degrees C.
That easing of the main storm will certainly be a welcome change, but it's important to remember that even with the reduced snowfall and the slight warming, road conditions could still be quite treacherous.
True.
Lingering snow, slush, and the potential for refreezing overnight could still pose a significant hazard for drivers and pedestrians alike. Can't let your guard down immediately.
Exactly. The forecast really emphasizes the need to continue to exercise caution, even as the bulk of the storm moves on. And then, looking a little further out into the weekend, Friday sounds like it might offer a bit of a break with a mix of sun and cloud and a high of plus 7 degrees C.
Getting better.
Although there's a chance of flurries or showers returning by the evening. The weekend, however, looks like it could be a bit of a mixed bag, with on and off flurries expected and daytime temperatures hovering just above freezing,
Ugh, more flurries.
while overnight lows could dip down to a rather chilly -11 degrees C. That's a stark reminder that spring in this region can be a bit of a roller coaster.
Yeah, that kind of fluctuation in temperature around the freezing point is something to pay attention to. It can lead to cycles of melting during the day and refreezing overnight, which can create very icy conditions on roads, sidewalks, and driveways. So even after the heavy snow has stopped, there could still be some lingering hazards to be aware of.
Definitely need to watch out for that ice. Now here's where things get really interesting as we put this current storm into a bit of historical context. The sources share some past April 2nd weather for Thunder Bay.
Oh, this should be good.
The warmest April 2nd on record reached a balmy 15.7 degrees C all the way back in 1953,
Wow, 15.7.
while the coldest plunged to a bone-chilling negation 23.3 degrees C in 1965.
Minus 23? That's a huge range.
Isn't it? Today's event, with the significant snowfall and those winds coming off the still cold lake, Definitely places it squarely on the wintry side of Thunder Bay's April 2nd weather history, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, no question. That historical comparison really underscores just how unusual this late season snowfall event is. To see such a substantial winter storm on a date that has also experienced relatively warm mid-spring temperatures really highlights the dynamic and sometimes unpredictable nature of weather in this part of the world. It makes you appreciate the variability from year to year.
And based on all of this, the practical advice coming through is pretty clear. Dress
Yeah.
as if it were the middle of February.
Yep.
Layer up. We're talking insulated parkas, snow pants, waterproof gloves, and those sturdy winter boots with good traction. They even suggest the goggles might be a worthwhile consideration if you have to be out in the heavy snow and blowing gusts due to the potentially very low visibility.
That's actually really smart advice. Goggles can make a huge difference.
And of course, the trusty snow shovel is going to be an absolutely essential piece of equipment.
Oh, definitely. Multiple rounds of shoveling, probably. That's all very sound advice. Dressing in layers is always a smart strategy in these kinds of conditions, as it allows you to adjust to changing temperatures and levels of physical activity. And you're right, goggles can make a significant difference in being able to see clearly when you're faced with heavy, wind-driven snow. It protects your eyes and improves visibility.
Finally, we stumbled upon a fascinating little nugget of Thunder Bay weather trivia. Apparently, the city's close proximity to Lake Superior often plays a role in intensifying snowfall, particularly during easterly wind events.
Ah, yes, the lake effect snow mechanism.
Right. The added moisture picked up from the relatively warmer lake waters can help to build those snow bands, often resulting in significantly higher snowfall totals just west of the city. And it sounds like that's very likely the kind of effect we're seeing play out with this storm today.
Almost certainly.
It's quite interesting how even with gradually warming lake temperatures in spring, the temperature difference between the water and the colder air aloft can still be significant enough to generate these intense localized snow bands.
Exactly. This is a classic example of what we often refer to as lake-enhanced precipitation, even though it's occurring in the spring rather than the typical late fall or early winter. The relatively warmer surface waters of Lake Superior are still able to add both heat and significant moisture to the cold air mass passing over it.
Okay.
As this warmer, moisture-laden air moves over land and encounters colder conditions, it rises, cools further, and releases that moisture in the form of enhanced snowfall downwind, which in this scenario is impacting Thunder Bay and those areas situated to its west. It's a really powerful local effect.
Okay, let's bring it all together then. You, our listener, have provided us with a detailed picture of a pretty significant spring snowstorm currently impacting Thunder Bay. We've seen how the combination of heavy snowfall and strong winds is leading to blizzard-like conditions, and we've noted the gale warning out on Lake Superior.
Quite the event.
It's definitely a stark contrast to what we might typically associate with early April, and the historical weather data for this date really underscores just how unusual this event is.
What's truly fascinating here, I think, is how these localized geographical factors, such as the immense presence of Lake Superior, can exert such a powerful and direct influence on shaping these weather events, even as we transition into the shoulder seasons like spring.
Yeah.
It serves as a potent reminder of the intricate and interconnected nature of our atmosphere and these large bodies of water.
So here's a final thought for you to consider as you maybe look out at the unexpected snow. Given Thunder Bay's historical experience of both surprisingly warm and exceptionally cold temperatures on this very day of April 2nd, what does a significant late-season snowfall event like this tell us about the increasing ups and downs we seem to be observing in our weather patterns?
That's a great question.
It's not just about the long-term averages, it's also about these more extreme and perhaps less predictable swings. Something to ponder as you grab that snow shovel. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.